Welcome to the Secrets of Personal Injury Law with Colin Bober.
Hello and welcome to the Secrets of Personal Injury Law with Jason Long, Senior Attorney at Colin B. Bober and Associates. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today's episode is about a very serious topic, and that is TBIs, or traumatic brain injuries. We're going to talk about how proving these are different from other personal injury claims. Jason, welcome back.
Thanks, Kevin. Nice to be here.
So obviously you've had these cases before. They're becoming more and more prevalent, especially in personal injury cases and in car accidents. What are the potential long-term effects of a TBI, and how do you factor this into determining the amount of compensation that your client should seek?
Well, it depends on the diagnostics. It depends on what the doctors find in the evaluation. A lot of the long-term effects, or even the short-term effects, frankly, are irritability, memory loss, headaches, trouble sleeping, anxiety, depression, loss of balance. And you'll have some clients that never had a history of any of these factors. And all of a sudden they're irritable, or they're having trouble sleeping, or they're just starting to be forgetful. These factors are quite serious. And one of the crucial questions that we like to ask on intake and ask our clients is, did you hit your head?
Yeah.
Did you hit your head on the steering wheel? Did you hit your head on the door or the window? Sometimes if the whiplash is severe enough and you hit your head back to the headrest, that can cause significant impact in your brain. They'll start reporting those injuries to the medical provider that will get them to a neurologist for further diagnostic and testing.
Obviously, you said a lot of different things there that are more difficult to point to from a financial aspect. Like, you have a broken arm, you can point to what that costs. Irritability, depression, these kind of things. Like, how do you go about figuring out like what the proper amount of compensation is?
So the crux will be the diagnostics from the neurologist to determine the long-term effects. What is it going to take to get you back to normal, so to speak?
Mm-hmm.
How much therapy? What is the cost of that therapy? The severity of, how did you hurt your head? How did you hit your head? Did you hit your head? And do you have a medical history of it? Did it exacerbate something else that you were experiencing already? Or did you come into this as a new client from an accident where you never had a history of anxiety or depression, and you're now irritable as well? So part of the equation also tailors back to limits issues. So the terms of value on a claim or a case can be handcuffed, if you will, based on the limits. And so if you do have a client that does report significant head injuries on the diagnostics, and they do require additional therapy, or therapy in general, perhaps doesn't necessarily mean that it's long-term, that therapy can be very expensive. And there may not be enough limits to have them go and get that therapy while the claim is ongoing. That may be an argument to take to the insurance company and say, hey, they have a significant head injury. It's been determined that they have a TBI, or at least a very serious concussion, and they are experiencing these significant injuries. That here are the medical records, here are the bills, and we're only dealing with a 30 policy, so to speak. Give me the policy. The value of it is determinative. Also, what are the limits? It's not to diminish what the client is going through, but sometimes if you're only dealing with a minimum $30,000 policy and another driver, and that's all there is, then you do your best to try and maximize what you can get for the client based on their injuries, present their story, present their injuries, and sometimes that's all you have to work with. So it's also very important when you have serious injuries like this, you identify proper coverage, because you may be limited in the amount of recovery that you can obtain for the client.
As far as the accidents go, do you see, I would guess that a lot of the TBIs come from like getting hit on the side, right? Because you hit your head on the window. Is that what you see more than, because I feel like going forward, the seatbelt will hopefully keep you from cracking your head on anything going forward. Do you see them mostly on the sides?
It's a little bit of all over.
Okay.
So as I mentioned before, we like to ask, did you hit your head in the vehicle? A lot of the times the clients will say, I'm reporting headaches, and I say, well, okay, did you hit your head in the vehicle? Did you hit it on the window? Did you hit it on the steering wheel where an airbag doesn't deploy? Or an airbag does deploy and it takes you and it pushes you back into the headrest? Or it could be a rear ender and you are, the seatbelt does restrain you, but your head does. I mean, it's called whiplash for a reason. You whiplash back and hit the back of the headrest. Not everyone's headrest is adjusted to the same height or perhaps the proper height. And you take everyone as they come individually. So someone might be a little bit more sensitive to pain than others. Others might have medical history that could have an impact on it as well. So it's a lot of different things of where they hit their head. Did the airbags deploy? Did the airbags not deploy? And those kinds of things go into the determination of what happens.
We're starting to understand them more. We see them more. Colin and I talk sports a lot. In sports, you see a lot of head injuries. Is it easier to talk about? Is it getting easier to talk about this with insurance companies because it's more prevalent, because it's more in the news, because it's more understood?
No, they'll still try and downplay it. They'll still try and
wishful thinking on my part, I guess.
Yeah, they're still going to do what they're going to do and try and downplay it and try to minimize it. So their calculations, their evaluations, a lot of those are just business decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it can depend on the adjuster. Sometimes it can just depends on the company, but it's not going to necessarily mean that they're just going to treat it with more empathy or sympathy. Not necessarily, but it just depends. And if they don't want to play ball and they don't want to give it any credence and they want to downplay it, then your one option may just be to sue and try and fight it out and get it over to defense counsel and a different kind of adjuster with different kinds of authority that can evaluate it a little bit more appropriately.
How does the process of proving a TBI case differ? Are there different pieces of evidence that are particularly important as opposed to other personal injuries?
Well, they will go and get diagnostics and testing from a neurologist that will do eye exams or eye scans and other kinds of cognitive testing to see what the results are. They will take those diagnostics and they'll review it with the neurologist to see what they concluded. Sometimes they conclude that it was just a serious concussion, but it wasn't necessarily a TBI. Sometimes it can be a little bit inconclusive, and then they need to do some additional diagnostics and review with the doctor. But bottom line is they're at least going to have a neurologist look at them further, consult with them, and pull up any scans that they do and speak with them further about the findings.
How do you ensure that insurance companies take the severity of a TBI seriously when negotiating a settlement for your client? Because you did mention that, they're still going to always try to undercut, try to pay as little as possible. So what tactics do you use to ensure they take it seriously?
Sue them.
Okay. Yeah, that works.
If they have an adjuster that didn't take it seriously enough or didn't review the bills and records and just didn't care, it's happened. Or they deny it and they just say, well, we want 5 years of medical history. They want to go dumpster diving for additional records and they want to see if there's pre-existing. They're just potentially looking for ways to just undercut it. And so we can't control them. And depending on how they respond or don't respond, then you kind of take it from there. But sometimes in instances like this where they're more severe injuries, then the only way sometimes you may have is to sue them. It's for them to actually pay attention and take it more seriously.
And what does that process look like? The process of actually going, okay, you're not going to take it seriously, we're suing you. How does that unfold?
Assuming we get a sort of a blow-off response or a lowball offer or sort of we can't review, accept or deny the demand at this point. We want 5 years of medical history, which, we're not going to provide 5 years of medical history in the pre-litigation phase. You can get it in litigation, basically, where if we get into a roadblock like that, we'll have a conversation with the client about appropriate next steps and, do they want to proceed? This is how we can resolve their claim or try to resolve their claim in a litigation setting. Then once they're on board and they're on the same page and they want to go forward, then we'll start collecting, affidavits and getting our team ready to prepare the petition and service and get everything teed up and ready. And that takes a little bit of time. That can take, several more weeks to a couple of months to get everything prepared. filed and served, and then have it go over to defense counsel, or at least a litigation adjuster, to start reviewing the file further and taking it from there. So just depends. The process can take a few months to get off the ground into the litigation setting.
And how long does that process overall, like from start to finish? I know it probably varies, but on average, is it a long process to litigate that?
It could be. It just depends on what needs to be litigated. Does it need to be litigated? It just depends on how much litigating there may need to be done on a claim. Do they need to do depositions? Do we need to go to mediation? And essentially, in the example that we started to give, where they didn't take it seriously enough, where we were sort of forced to sue, if you will, for them to give it the proper attention, then it may be something that is reviewed further by defense counsel and litigation, or I'm sorry, the lit adjuster, if you will, that may put a proper value on it. And that may be all that we need to do. It may not need necessarily to go through a lengthy depositions and mediations and something like that. It just depends on how the pre-litigation team or adjusters responded. Did they even make an offer? Is it a lowball offer? Did they just deny it outright? And do we need to fight it all the way? It just, each situation just depends. So it's kind of hard for me to give you an exact, time frame, month-wise or longer, just to set expectations.
Is that not taking it seriously by the insurance company or lowballing offer and stuff with these TBIs? Is that just like a challenge almost? Like, well, let's see if they sue us. And if they sue us, we'll go from there. But for now, let's try this first.
Could be. Sometimes there are firms out there that don't sue, that just send in pre-litigation demands and see if they can get it resolved. And if they come up against a brick wall like this and they're not the ones that file suit, then the insurance companies will know. They'll pick them out. They do know which firms sue and which don't. So that could be a factor that goes into their strategy of whether or not they're going to pay on a claim or not, or just deny it outright. Sure, that's one factor that could go into it.
So if someone's in an accident and they might have a little head injury, they might get their bell rung, they might be like, oh boy, that kind of shook me up a little bit. In your opinion, from what you've seen, do you feel that they should always go to the hospital and get checked out, even if they don't think it was real severe?
They should always do what they need to do medically. We're not gonna tell you what you need to do for yourself, because we're not doctors. If you have the need to go get checked out, go get checked out. Go to an urgent care, go to your PCP, go to a hospital. You need to do what you need to do for yourself medically to make sure you're okay and make sure you're stable. That's kind of what it boils down to.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, definitely a serious issue, and I thank you very much for all your insight, and thank you for tuning in to The Secrets of Personal Injury Law with Jason Long. To connect with Jason and the team, visit boberlawfirm.com, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and leave us a review. Jason, great having you here again. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.